let's talk fonts and logos. So the first place that the font, any font, is important is on your book cover. And my guess is that if you're hiring a professional book cover designer to do your book covers, they're going to choose what font to put on your book cover. That does not mean that you have to use that exact same font for everything ever, but it's certainly worth knowing what font that is and purchasing the licensing to that font so that you can use it in your marketing and you can use it in your advertising, and you can use it on your website if you want to. On the other hand, I have multiple series, right? And each series uses different fonts on the covers. So what I've done is I've picked fonts that I like and I try to use them consistently across the my website and the different things that I develop and that I create, so that I have this one consistent brand, and then each of my book series has their own specific brand, sub-brand, if you will. You can do whatever you want. You can do whatever you're most comfortable with. If you only have one series and that's all you're going to have, then you should use that same font for everything. And I actually believe that that's true. There are multiple different fonts that you're going to want to use, however. I'm not an expert on this particular design, but I can tell you that there are essentially 3 different types of fonts. There's sans serif fonts, which and there are serif fonts. Serifs are those like little edges. I'll show an example up here of a serif font. They've got like little lines on the edges. And then sans serif means that there are no fonts. And then you have like header fonts. These are like bold and big, and they might have a distressed look, or they might have, a dripping look. And these big bold fonts are pretty much only for title style fonts. You don't want to use it in like text because it's hard to read in more than a couple words at a time. So when you're choosing fonts, I think personally you should have at least 3. You should have a bold font that you use for like big stuff, like maybe on your website you have like a header image and then you have words on top of it like your name. So that should be one font. Then you have a header font, which is basically any sort of subtitles that you have, like maybe on your website you have your name at the top, and then you have like a blog post title, and then the third type is your text that people are going to have to be reading quickly. And so as you're making your decisions, sort of think about that, at least 3 different main fonts. I also don't think you want too many. 3 is a good number, 4 is a good number, but once you start getting to 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 different types of fonts for like the main parts of your brand, it starts to get a little bit muddy. It starts to get a little bit confusing. I'm going to say something that you're probably tired of me hearing, but it again goes back to why. Why do you need the font? What is the purpose of that font? And what are you doing with it? So you might add another, 6th font for a specific reason, but you should have your core fonts that you use for everything pretty much. I think it's also worth mentioning that fonts are intellectual property the same way that art is and that our writing is. And so when you're choosing your fonts, make sure that you have the licensing rights to use them. There are plenty of free fonts out there, but if you're looking on like defont.com or something like that, each font that you download comes with its own licensing requirements. And sometimes you have to pay to use that for like a certain number of printing, or you have to use it if you're using it for like you can only use it for free for educational type stuff, but you can't use it for free if you're selling a product like a book. So make sure you double check the licensing on a font. Logos can also be an important part of your brand. I will say you don't have to have a logo, but you can have one if you want one. If you do have a logo, a few things you can use it for is you can put it on your website, you can put it on your social media. I put it on the spine. So all of my books, I have my logo. See, it's like right here. I think it makes it look professional. I like how it looks. How do you pick what you want in your logo? Well, it goes back to your reader promise. What are you offering them, and how can you visually represent that in a really simple, single, visual way? So my logo is literally just my initials, AJS, in a circle. This is an idea I had like 10 years ago, because it was back when I was doing author-centric branding, and I wanted my books and my series all to be about, about me, and I was going to be the face of my brand. Then I started putting them on my spines, and the logo became the face of my books. And so when I switched to book-centric marketing, it didn't matter. And now that I'm doing a blend of both, it's perfect. And I like how it looks, and it really represents me. My brother made it for me. He does graphic design on the side. So if you're going to do a design, I do recommend hiring someone. It's not super expensive, a couple $100 maybe, to have a logo designed. Most designers have a process they'll make you walk through, maybe a form to fill out. They'll want you to pick colors, and then a lot of them will give you a few different versions of it, like maybe your brand with your name next to it, or your brand with your logo with your name next to it, your logo with your name under it, a white version, a black version, a PNG version with no background. They'll give you a few different ones that you can use in different areas depending on what you need. So logos are fun. They're not super expensive. They're pretty simple, and I really do think they can sort of give you a air of professionalism that a lot of other authors don't have. A couple things to be aware of. Licensing. Again, you can't just go on Google and pick an image that you think makes a cool logo and slap your name on it. You have to pay for an image if you do that. And a lot of licensing of like stock photos and stuff doesn't allow you to use their image as a logo, as a direct representation of your brand. So whatever imagery you're using, make sure that you understand the copyright regarding that image, and that you are paying for the appropriate level of licensing for that image. Don't get yourself screwed in the long run. You're probably not going to get in trouble if you remain a small author your entire life, but let's say you become big one day. That's what we all dream of, right? You become famous. Well, you don't want to get sued because you illegally used an image or some form of graphic for your logo that you didn't have the rights to. So just be aware of that when you're picking and choosing and making decisions about your logo.